Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And we're going to talk about canon, right? So Dungeons & Dragons is truly a product of its own. Nothing in the world has dealt with canon in the way, no product in the history of the human race has ever dealt, human species, excuse me. I'm trying to keep it D&D here. So has ever, right, has ever dealt with canon the way Dungeons & Dragons does. And Dungeons & Dragons is one of the most strange, one of the most unusual, and actually, in my opinion, dynamic. That's the best way to say it. Dungeons & Dragons has the single most dynamic, canon in the history of any product that's ever been written by a human being. Period. End of sentence. All right, secular. Well, let me put that attachment on there. And it was unparalleled, completely unparalleled, until Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This thing is literally dealing with canon in the canon, right? So it is canon, and it is discussing canon in the canon, right? This is a recursion. This is an inversion, right? It's powerful. This is absolutely incredible, okay? But it gets some things wrong, right? And yeah. Actually, again, you know, if you ski the Black Diamond, you're gonna take some falls, right? And so they're only getting things wrong because they're doing something of significance, right? So I'm not saying they're not, you know, this isn't a brilliant story. I'm saying there's parts of it that are fundamentally wrong. And we, as Dungeon Masters, need to be paying attention to this because we have to get canon right. We don't have the luxuries of just spitting out whatever the way a Hollywood writer would, right? Okay, so let's get all the way there. So, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse presents the idea, literally says that Lieutenant Stacy, who is Gwen Stacy's father, that his death is a canon event. Right? And so Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, says says to Spider-Man, you can't change this. This is a canon event, right? You cannot change this. This is a canon event, right? And directs him not to do anything to change it, right? Here's my supposition. That is not a canon event, not even remotely, right? Like, so they are right to call out the canon of Marvel. Marvel has its own canon, and it desperately tries to honor its canon. And by the way, following canon is not always honoring it, right? You can break canon if you're knowledgeable of what you're doing and you do it right, and that could be the best way to honor canon, right? All right, so let's get all the way there, right? So you have this situation, right? And they're saying that Gwen Stacy's father's death is canon, and it's important to the Spider-Man universe. That is complete. That's bulldrock, in my opinion. That is not correct, right? What's canon to Spider-Man? Let's count them off. The death of Uncle Ben. Period. End of sentence. That's huge, right? Spider-Man and Mary Jane get married. Period. Peter Parker and Mary Jane get married. That's canon, right? And they broke that canon, and people got really upset about it, right? But that was canon, and them breaking it has become canon, and them fixing it has become canon, right? That's canon. Everybody knows it, right? Jonah. What else is canon, right? It's canon that Spider-Man is, well, okay, actually, let's keep it at events, just events, right? Because I was about to start to talk about patterns that are canon, and maybe that's a different discussion. I'm going to keep this as clean as possible, right? So, events. To me, there's really only two events that are canon to Spider-Man's life, right? It is canon that Spider-Man, let's do some, so yeah, there's a couple more. It is absolutely canon that Peter Parker is bit by a radioactive spider. It's canon, right? Like, and what is canon? It's a stadium anthem, right? It's if you ask people about Spider-Man, even people who don't care about comics will know these parts. Oh yeah, he's really down with Mary Jane. He got bit by a radioactive spider, and his Uncle Ben dies. Right? You don't even have to be a comic fan to list those off. That's canon. That is canon. Right? Gwen Stacy is. I'm not even sure Gwen Stacy is canon. Right? Mary Jane is known to be with Spider-Man. That seems canon. Gwen Stacy seems like a branch that has a lot of content, but Gwen Stacy is not crucial to the canon of Spider-Man, right? So they got this very, very wrong, and in my humble opinion, every Dungeon Master should be studying very, very carefully Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And the reason why is we are in a position where we are going to be innovating storytelling by mixing intellectual properties in ways that are completely unprecedented. So I recently went to the Carlisle Ford show, right? And it was literally it's called the Carlisle Nationals, right? And it's the Carlisle Ford Nationals, right? So they gather all the best Fords from all over the country, and they show them in one spot, right? And there was stock and there was modified, right? And so basically, when we start to deal with Dungeons and Dragons canon, we need to know what the stock is, right? And then we make a choice whether to keep canon stock or whether to modify it. And it's very important to understand this. Just like a Mustang, a classic Mustang. If you're going to keep it stock, some of the parts may no longer be available, right? So you need to get a modern part that's as close to the stock as possible. So even to keep D&D canon stock, you have to know the canon, right? You have to know the canon and know it well. And this is why, and I've been telling you this for a while. If you're, okay, first of all, tier 1 Dungeon Master, right? If you're, you know what, let's just say it this way, a Dungeon Master. To me, if you don't have 100 sessions under your belt, you're not really a Dungeon Master. You're somebody who tried Dungeons and Dragons, and you might decide you might not like it, right? And to me, you don't really have enough. A real Dungeon Master, let's just say that, a real Dungeon Master, somebody with 100 sessions under their belt, right? They need to understand, like, once you reach that point, you absolutely must go back and get every physical hardback for Edition 1, Edition 2, Edition 3, Edition 4, and Edition 5. You need to have those to understand canon stock, right? Because you got no business modifying it if you don't know what the stock is, right? And so it's really important that we know our canon and we know what actually is canon and what is not. And get this, it's only 50 years old. And I think as a D&D community, we need to start having that discussion and saying this is stock and this is not, right? So don't make the Spider-Verse Across the Spider-Verse mistake of trying to claim things that are canon that are clearly not canon, right? Like there is absolutely not enough narrative gravitas to say that the death of Gwen Stacy is canon and can't be changed in the Spider-Man universe. That's ridiculous. It's just. And I think it was a failure of understanding canon stock for Marvel. Or they understood it, but their hubris was so high, they chose to ignore it, right? And again, we have to learn billion dollar Bravo from Hollywood. We have to pay attention to them, right? And the reason why is they know how to without exception, right? Hollywood knows how to engage people. They really do. And we have to do that. We have to know how to engage people. And we also have to know how to spread Dungeons and Dragons. We can't let it remain niche, right? But we also we have to extract the hubris, right? We cannot have the same level of hubris and, frankly, cruelty for other human beings that Hollywood writers have, right? We just have to do better. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.